I think running has saved my life, not in a dramatic way, but I remember this man like coming up to me with
Dr. Mimi is a leading voice in sports science.
Sometimes sessions are going to feel harder because of how your hormones are working against you.
She now uses her knowledge to cut through fitness misinformation on social media. There has been increasing electrolyte marketing, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
People...
Before we get into the chat with Dr. Mimi, I would be very, very grateful if you could click the subscribe button or leave a 5-star review. By doing this, you help us get the best guests in to have the best conversations to help you live a happier and healthier life. Just takes a second. Thank you so much. Dr. Mimi.
Hello.
What did movement look like for you when you were a young girl?
I think like most young girls, movement was seen as a way to lose weight, which makes me really sad now. So I think it was a lot of like crash dieting and then being like, summer's coming, let's go for a run. But it wasn't consistent. It was very patchy. It was much focused on like, how I looked rather than like performance, which is a huge shift to where I am now with the way I view movement and running and exercise. And I did Couch to 5K. I failed it because Couch 5K is really, really hard. But then it's only now that I can like look back and be like, Couch 5K is really hard, but you can go on and still find a love for running.
I think that's so good that you've said that, because when I did London this year, all my friends who said I could never do a marathon, I always said to them, December before the London Marathon, so 5 months before the London Marathon, I went for a 7K run with my boyfriend, and every single 1 kilometre I had to stop and walk. And then, 5 months later doing the marathon. And I think that is personally what I like really love about running is if you stick at it, you can improve and you can feel that tangible improvement because you're bloody fast. We'll come back to that later, but to hear that you failed Couch to 5K, I feel like will show so many people listening that everyone is bad at running when they start.
100%.
It's not normal to be able to run that far and not be out of breath.
Yeah, because it would be like, you'd be like, okay, week 5, let's go, walk, run. And then you get there and be like, I can't do this. It's too hard, and give up. But then if you do find a way in, signing up for a race or like joining a run club, like you will find you stick to it and you will progress and you'll find the enjoyment in it, especially as you move away from how you look to what can my body do for me.
So in school, it was that aesthetic goal, which I think a lot of us can probably like relate to. At what point did you then decide that you wanted to be a doctor?
Oh, I think it was about GCSEs time. I think that's quite the classic time when it's kind of floated to you. I think I was always very good at science, but never at any particular subject. I was quite like social. It seemed like a really, incredible, rewarding job. Like I know it's quite cringe. You're not supposed to say this typically in medical school interviews, but you do just want to go and help people. And it's a very vocational career. So I was like, let's do medicine. It kind of lines up with like what I'm interested in, where I could see myself in like 10 years' time. When
I was researching this episode, we came across a statistic that was actually like really, really, really sad. The baby boomer generation, so 1946 to 1964, is actually more active than women who are aged 18 to 24.
No way.
Yeah, which is really, really, really sad. And then I heard that you've previously said that when you went to uni, you stopped moving or stopped exercising because you didn't see it as cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get out of that? And why do you think women like our age aren't moving their bodies as much?
I think I got out of it because, again, I'm annoyed at myself. It came back to I stopped exercising and I was thinking more about like kind of academics and boys, and then, which I think is, very classic at that age. And I gained some weight and I was like, okay, I need to lose weight. And I think a lot of women fall into running because of that reason. But then for me, it then again translates into performance and thinking about actually like my weight is the least interesting thing about me. Like I'm doing something that I love. I found my sport and I can see progress, tangible progress like you spoke about, where I'm able to literally run 42 kilometers. Like I'm going on long runs on a Sunday that are 3 hours long and I can do that. Like honoring my body, respecting it, giving it the energy and the food it needs to do all that activity. Like it just completely shifts your mindset. And I think running is so great because it teaches you like discipline, respecting your body. Yeah, I could go on. I could go on for ages.
Was there a point where you maybe felt like you had almost like finally healed your relationship with your body and exercise, or do you think that's still a little bit of an ongoing process?
I think I have finally reached a point of like, yeah, food freedom and very neutral body image, which I think is because of running, and I'm so grateful for that. I think I was probably on the cusp of a bit of red S, which I think we're going to talk about a bit later, where I was training for my third marathon and everything was just like starting to break down. It was also because I wasn't strength training, but I definitely wasn't really eating as much as I should have been, really, for how much exercise I was doing. And I couldn't really like break this cycle of injury. And with a lot of help from my physio and a lot of help from like my boyfriend being like, you need to eat after a run, you need to get your protein in, like it helped me just break that cycle of injury. So I kind of, turned it around. And
yeah, that's interesting you say about your boyfriend, because I actually find as well that probably one of the most healing things in like my relationship with body and food, which unfortunately I think there's a lot of us who have had those struggles in the past, but being with my boyfriend and seeing like how much he would eat.
Yeah.
And then also him, like he's always, I don't know, I would just go to the gym without having anything before the gym. And if I went to the gym with him, he'd say, come on, like you need to have at least a banana or something.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different mentality to how I think women are brought up. Like he would be someone who, when he was full, he would stop eating. Whereas like seeing someone who's so in tune with their hunger cues, when as a woman, you're often taught to like silence those hunger. Yeah. So you keep eating even when you're full, but then you don't eat something when, say, you're hungry. I wanted to come back to the red S because I was on my like trauma and ortho rotation this year. And I remember after the London Marathon coming back in and I was talking to one of the doctors and she said they had a ridiculous amount of women in their 30s and 20s who came in with broken hips from the London Marathon. Yeah, it's so awful. Could you talk a little bit about what red S is, signs, what to look out for and how to prevent it?
Yes, so red S is relative energy deficiency in sport. It used to be called the female athlete triad because it was thought to affect more women than men, but we now know that it affects both genders. And what's kind of included in that syndrome is if you're a woman, loss of menstruation, bone issues, so osteoporosis, weak bones, and low energy intake, so not getting in the calories you need to meet your energy requirements. It's more common in sports where being lean is seen as favourable, so things like gymnastics, I think ice skating and long distance running. Not to say that being lean is necessarily going to be benefiting you in those sports, but traditionally that's kind of what coaches and what the kind of sports culture was promoting. And I think as women, it affects us more because, well, society is one thing, and also men can go for longer in an energy deficient state before it shows up. Whereas for women, you will see it a lot quicker. So the sort of things to be looking out for are feeling tired all the time, constantly being unwell, so getting lots of coughs and colds, loss of your period or having irregular periods. So what happens is your luteal phase shortens. So you might notice that your period comes a bit sooner, like lack of motivation, feeling hungry all the time, waking up feeling hungry, not being able to get through your sessions.
Yeah, and it was like constantly drilled in to us by orthopedic surgeons. If you see a woman who is young, slim, training for a marathon and she's coming in with pain in like her bone or somewhere that just is not going away, really think about that, because especially if their bones are so, fragile.
Yeah.
And, if you've caused like a stress fracture, it's like a small break in their bone and they keep running on it, it can cause so much damage. I think previously, or the impression I got from when, those ortho surgeons is, it can sometimes be overlooked.
Medical gaslighting of women.
Yeah, classic. Yeah, this woman who's got pain that won't go away and nothing's shown up on an X-ray.
Yeah, because it won't, because it's usually such small changes. And I guess the good thing is if you kind of recognize the symptoms sooner, you can rest and rehabilitate it before it then goes and progresses on to being a full-on fracture, which is probably what was happening with these women turning up after the marathon because they just didn't know.
Yeah.
They were running on like partially broken bone.
It's just crazy because no one should be breaking their hip in their 20s and their 30s. Which is wild. But so you said that you were struggling with injuries. How did it feel to finally find like a sport that you really loved, was able to focus on the performance rather than the aesthetic side, but then to find yourself like having these injuries, and how did you overcome that?
It was really hard. It was really hard, to be honest, looking back. I think so for London Marathon, you can time qualify for a place. So I'd ran the Manchester Marathon, I'd got my time qualifier, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to run the London Marathon. And suddenly I was like so getting invested into my training, and then suddenly it was just injury after injury after injury. And it was January at this point and the marathon's in April. And I was like, how am I going to get through this humongous distance when like I can't even walk, like I'm limping. Like I was limping around the wards at work.
Oh my
gosh.
Was
that bad.
Oh.
So yeah, I think it was really, really hard. I think because I knew how much it meant to me, how much I'd worked for that sport, how much running adds to my life. When I realized it was my sport was because I was willing to like go to the gym, do the rehab, like rest, eat, sleep properly, which I think if it's something you don't care about that much, you're not gonna, be doing your rehab on your break on your night shift, which is what I was doing in the doctor's office. Like you've got to, I think that's when I kind of realized I was like, this is for the long run, this relationship I have with the sport, and it's something that I really enjoy, and I'm willing to do all these sacrifices and all these things to keep doing what I love.
I've never really thought of it before, but men in sport from such a young age, it is so focused on performance. And then for women, where from a young age is so much more focused on aesthetics.
Yeah.
Actually, it makes sense that as a woman later on, if you start to notice issues that are impacting your performance, you're probably going to dismiss it more than a man would you say?
Yeah.
I feel as though if a boy is injured, they'd be quicker to seek a solution for the injury.
Yeah.
Rather than keep going, do you think?
I think I definitely was like sitting on some injuries and ignoring it, which is probably, what was happening with these women with the stress fractures, because they probably were like, oh, there's a pain in my hip, but I don't want to, there's a risk I'm going to be told to stop running. There's a risk that someone might not take me seriously. I'm not really sure what's happening with my body, and I find that scary. And especially I think when you're in your 20s and 30s, like this is like the healthiest and fittest, hopefully, you're going to be in your life. So to have something that could potentially take away your love of sports, or definitely like kind of impact, or how much you can do it for a few months is a little bit worrying. You might not want to seek the solution straight away.
And also I think like the rise of running is incredible, and I think running is amazing because the threshold for entry, or the barriers for entry are so low.
Yeah.
You can just stick on some trainers and get out the door and go. Do you think there's any dangers perhaps associated with the boom in running?
Yes. Also, it's interesting, going back to the statistic, you said you researched about how women 18 to 24 are less active than the boomer generation. The rise in running is attributed to more women taking up the sport. So maybe you can get more women being more active that way, which you definitely can, because like you said, the barriers to entry are so low. But I think there are dangers. I think my story of how I started to take running a bit more seriously is probably like a very classic beginner runner thing, where you don't really know like how to train correctly. So you're just going out and just like smashing all the runs at a certain pace, and you're like, let me just sign up for a marathon.
Yeah.
I think I did that, didn't take the training very seriously. Very luckily didn't come away with any injuries, but like that's obviously a very big danger. I think a lot of people are doing that, and I think it's great. We've got lots of people sort of doing like, getting into running, but the whole sort of like couch to marathon thing that I have seen on social media is a little bit concerning. But then again, like I also did it, so I completely get why people want to do it. I guess it's just managing your expectations, being sensible with the training, and trying not to fall for all the supplements, like all the gear, and just kind of, you don't need to be wearing like the most expensive kit or like the most expensive trainer. Like the barriers to entry, especially when you're a beginner, are just very low. So just try and get the trainers on and just get out the door and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I think the barriers to entry are so low that maybe people might miss the importance of fueling yourself properly and get themselves an injury, because you can just go out and do it. But then on the other hand, it's so beautiful that the barrier to entry is so low, because anyone can get involved. But well, we've definitely seen a rise in the marketing of things that you need. And my mum came around to stay the night before I did the marathon, and she did the London Marathon and she did it in 3:45, which, it's such a slay from her. And I asked her, I said, oh, what did you use to fuel yourself for the marathon?
I'm scared.
And she was like,
a banana.
She was a couple of jelly babies. And you know, we're there with all our gels, our electrolytes, our carbon plated running shoes.
Yeah. It's really complicating the conversation when those sort of things are what comes like right at the, like that's the tip of the iceberg. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's like that's the finishing touch. Whereas like the basics, like eating, sleeping, going to the gym a few times and just being sensible with training are like your bread and butter for like getting good at running. And all of that extra stuff is just like if you fancy it kind of thing.
I bloody love like all your stuff on social media. Like I think on the lead up to the marathon, I was waiting by my phone every single day for Dr. Mimi's countdown for things you need to know before the marathon. But when was it that you realised that you could combine your love of this sport and being a doctor to put a message out, you know, spreading a message, especially that's very important, especially for women? Yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying, when did you decide, I want to combine the two things?
I was getting annoyed, to be honest, at social media because it was a lot of noise and not much clarity. And I was like, if you're a beginner runner, you're going to get so confused. I'm going to make the content I wish I'd known when I'd first started. And I've only really been consistently running for about 3 years, which really isn't that long and like running in the running scheme of things. But I do have a medical degree, and I have progressed fairly quickly. So I feel like, yeah, I kind of know what I'm talking about.
You're doing something right. Yeah.
I just wanted the content that I would have wanted when I first started out, just to make things clearer, because there's so much noise. And I think if you were starting off running and seeing all these people doing all these like cool challenges on social media, you'd be like, well, do I need to just go from like doing barely any running to doing like an ultra marathon through Italy? Like, is that what I need to be doing right now, when like it's so much simpler than that? And actually, like, you don't need to be running all these crazy challenges to be healthy. You don't need to be getting caught up in all these things. Like, you obviously do it if you want to. They're huge and amazing achievements, but it can just be a lot simpler at the start. And then as you get more into it and you get more advanced, then you can think about doing these huge crazy challenges.
Yeah, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Is there anything on like social media in the fitness wellness space that has particularly annoyed you or particularly worried you about like the message maybe to young women?
I think I'm still seeing people out there promoting fasted training, which really grinds my gears, because I feel, especially with quite a lot of men, like I said, men can kind of get away with under fueling for longer than women can. But I think with women, because, you know, our fertility and everything is related to sort of your stress levels, like, your energy intake, all of that, it's fast training is something that's just like a no-no. And if it's anything kind of over an hour, I am always eating at least something substantial before, if not before every run, making sure I've got something in me before I go for my run. Because I think it came, for me especially, it came to the point of being like, well, what do you value more? Do you value being able to do something you love and being good at it? Or do you value like how skinny or thin you are? And it's like, I think I'd know what I'm going to look back on in 20 years time and value more. And
the achievements of like what your body is capable of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've gone a bit of a tangent there.
No. That was absolutely, that is, it is really worrying it, because I think also it really damages women's relationship with exercise in the long run. Because I think if you're fasting your training, it generally does make it so much harder and it's not as enjoyable. Like I remember the first time my boyfriend gave me a banana before the gym and I was like, yeah. And it was just a more enjoyable like activity. It didn't feel like punishment. It felt completely different. And I think, I don't know, coming back to that statistic about like why is our generation not moving as much? Like if you're not making it enjoyable, of course it's going to be harder to move and be consistent with moving. Yeah. Are there any other reasons you think maybe people aren't moving as much?
I don't know, the society we live in, phones, sitting down all day, it's hard to fit in exercise. I think you've got to find something you love to want to make the time for it. And I think it can be quite hard, especially for women, because I think there's a crazy statistic out there about like the rates of like drop off when you reach being a teenager as a woman. Like I think men keep participating in sports and we just like drop off. And I think a lot of it's like body image. A lot of it's like not feeling like they're good enough to keep going, like not having a safe space to like train in or run in. Like not feeling included in clubs and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why women aren't moving as much, which is a shame because like, I think I spoke a bit about on one of my videos that there's a performance gap between men and women. So men typically tend to be about 10% faster than women on most running distance events on average. And the reason for this gap is there's biological reasons, but there's also structural reasons. So it's lack of funding for women. It's like not being allowed to participate in certain events. Like you couldn't take in the marathon. You couldn't do the marathon until like the 70s or 80s as a woman.
No way.
Crazy. Lack of funding, not being able to being able to participate in events. There's a theory out there that the gap is beginning to close because we're just getting more women participating in running. And there's scope to decrease that gap even further if we just get more and more women participating. And it's definitely happening because women are getting a lot faster. Like even in social media I've noticed it like a few years ago, like the way the time qualifying times for the marathon is just coming down so quickly. It's because more people are running, more women are running. We're getting faster, we're having more knowledge on how to get faster, which is good. So I think it's definitely becoming less of a, I don't know, jungle of information, but there's still work to be done.
I think it reminds me of the way that we're kind of told that men's brains are engineering maths brains and women's brains are more left like English and creative and, you know, less STEMmy. But then it's similar where when were women allowed to enter those industries? Women were allowed to enter creative industries so much sooner than they were allowed to enter STEM. And so it's how much of it is biology and how much of it is society.
Not being able to do it.
Exactly. And you said about the drop-off point, and I was thinking about like my experience of when I was in PE in like school, and classic when you're in secondary school and everyone starts getting their period. And I think I had my period 4 weeks in a row to get out of PE, you know? And I was definitely not the only one in my class out of the girls, you know, we were all always on our period. And it really makes me happy seeing, say, the Lionesses, because I think surely that is inspiring these girls to keep going. But I also think it relates to how poor the education is around our menstrual cycles. Is there anything, how do you kind of manage, or how would you advise managing shifts in your cycle around exercise?
I think it's about having the grace with yourself. Like sometimes sessions are going to feel harder because of how your hormones are working against you. Sometimes they're going to feel easier because of the way your hormones are working with you. The first day of your period is a good day to go for a run. You might not feel like you want to, but because of the way your hormones are working, you're going to feel stronger, you're going to feel faster, you're going to perform better. If you're in so much pain or you're bleeding so heavily that you cannot exercise, I think that's, you need to go speak with your doctor, because I don't think we should be accepting that as the norm. That's not the norm. There is things that we can help you with medically. We can, give advice. So yeah, I don't think you should see your period as something to hold you back. It can definitely be something that can work with you and be your superpower. Like, yeah, it's not the end of the world. If you have your period on race day, like it could help you a lot.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's it's and there's a lot of demonization around just the cycle in general. And you're right that even the pain relieving qualities of exercise are probably not spoken about enough.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you go out and try and hit a PB for your 5K, but if you can go out and just, move your body.
Yeah.
And hopefully decrease your pain a little bit.
Yeah. I think the luteal phase gets a lot of hate, but medals have been won in all stages of the menstrual cycle. And there is a study that I have read where they're like, the majority of women actually performed a little bit better in the luteal phase, other phases of the periods. I would need to find that study.
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because what kind of grinds my gears about everything on social media at the moment with the demonization of the bloody luteal phase. Like, do not get me wrong, the week before my period, I'm not top tier fae. However, the luteal phase is not a homogenous lump.
No.
The luteal phase also has fluctuations in your hormones. So I notice at the beginning of my luteal phase, I feel like crap. And then at the end of my luteal phase, I also feel like crap. But around the middle, I'm kind of vibing.
Get on with it.
Yeah, because there's still a fluctuation in those hormones. And I don't know, if you agree, I think the bottom line is you just have to tune into those patterns.
You've got to work with your body. And if you're running your track session and you can't complete it because you just feel terrible, that's fine. You still did the run. Do you know what I mean? That's all still progress. You're still banking progress in the bank. You're still progressing. You still went for that run. That in itself is an achievement. So just because you didn't hit your paces exactly, that's fine. And your body only ever knows effort. It doesn't know paces. So hopefully when you're feeling, more yourself, you've got past your luteal phase, you've eaten well, you slept well, you're going to be hitting those paces easily. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you personally balance between, I don't know, I struggle with this a lot. How do you personally balance being kind to yourself versus pushing yourself and wanting to do the best that you can? Because I don't know, I think especially as women, we're told to tune out our body and not listen to our body. That when I'm maybe hurting a little bit or I'm a little bit tired, I can't tell if I'm being lazy. Yeah. Or if I'm actually pushing myself too far and I should just kind of take a breather.
It's easy to say, a lot easier to say than do in practice, but just taking the pressure off, because I think that comes with experience. But I used to have times where I just would not bother to do a session, or I'd be like, it's not going to go well, so what's the point? But that's so defeatist. If you're feeling tired, just give it a go. Just do the first few kilometers, and then if you feel terrible, you can stop. You probably won't feel terrible.
Yeah.
And if you just take the pressure from, I'm just going to go for the run, I'm going to see how it goes. What's the worst that can happen? You still went out and tried. And again, you're just banking the fitness. It's not the end of the world. And I think it's really good to have a training log or have a training diary to see how you're progressing, because you might think the session's gone really badly, but actually if you look at it, you've got quicker. You would have got quicker. So it's okay.
Yeah. It's funny you should say, well, what's the worst that can happen? I'll tell you what the worst is that can happen. I went for a run last month, okay? Went for a run, 2 kilometers in, I feel like I am being repeatedly punched in the stomach. And not just, I don't think that's what I realised first. I'm maybe 1 kilometer in and I look at my boyfriend and I'm I'm going to poo myself. Like, I'm actually going to poo myself.
Ronnie's colitis.
No, but he was like, you're not going to poo yourself. You're coming on your period. I'm telling you now, you're coming on your period. And I said, no, Dylan, I am going to poo myself. He's like, no, you're coming on your period. You do this every single month. You think you're going to poo yourself and it's not. It's your period. I'm like, no, I'm telling you this time it is. Anyway, order an Uber because otherwise I'm not going to get home in time to then shower and go to work. Get home from the Uber. What's happening? Came on my period, didn't I? I have my own personal thoughts, but I would really, really, really love to hear yours. There has been an increase in electrolyte marketing that seems to suggest that electrolyte powders or drinks aren't just for after running or vomiting, or maybe if you've had too many alcoholic beverages the night before, but actually you should be taking electrolyte supplements or powders, electrolyte powders or drinks every single day. And I actually had a package of electrolyte powders arrive the other week, and it suggested having 3 to 5 powders every single day.
Crazy.
And I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think it's really interesting how electrolyte companies, their marketing at the moment seems to be, we're going to try and convince you this is something that you need every day. The same way like we might say take vitamin D because we live in the beautifully grey northern hemisphere. I think they're trying to like, make out it's something like a need like that, when really there are only very, very specific times you really need to take electrolytes. And having it every day, having 3 or 5 packets in a day of salty, sugary powder, it's just not a good idea. Like, we know your kidneys work well at keeping things in balance. And you only really need to be taking in the added salt via the electrolytes if you're losing that salt. So if you're sweating a lot, and examples of when you might be sweating a lot is if you're exercising for over 2 hours in the heat or at altitude. It's a very specific criteria in which I'll be getting out the electrolytes myself. It's not an everyday kind of thing. You get electrolytes in your food. A lot of the companies, the packets have quite a lot of salt in them. So if you're having 4 packets a day that have 1,000 milligrams of sodium in it, you are very likely going to be breaching your daily allowance. It's just not a need. And, you know, crisps have like salt in them. Big Macs have salt in them. Like coconut water has electrolytes in it. Like Vietnamese pho, the soup, has electrolytes in it. It's probably not anything additional you need to be supplementing necessarily. And I think it's, pretty dangerous how it's being pushed. And I think if they're kind of following on with this idea that it's something that you need and you're getting kind of like hooked on having these 3-5 sachets of salty sugary water every day, like what's not to say it's going to start having adverse effects. You know that high salt diets can cause high blood pressure. And if you're not losing the salt, then it's just gonna
and my concern was our kidneys, touch wood, I don't know about your kidneys, I'm pretty sure my kidneys are pretty good,
pretty functional,
pretty functional kidneys. We're just going to be weeing all of that out. But my concern was when I saw this packaging, if someone's got a parent or, a parent who maybe they live with whose kidneys are not working so good and they're having these 3 to 5 a day, that's, if they're not able to pee out the excess, that can actually have pretty significant consequences
in the long term. Yeah.
Or even if someone's not filtering properly.
Yeah.
And, they end up with too much potassium or...
Yeah, I think I did a video on this and a girl, someone our age was literally like, I went to the GP, I had like high potassium and it was because of all these electrolytes I'm taking in. Which, and that's, I'm assuming this was a young healthy girl with functioning kidneys. So, just something to be mindful of. And I think especially when they're like, other brands underdose their sodium, but we've got loads of sodium and potassium and magnesium. You don't really lose that much potassium and magnesium in your sweat. It's mainly salt. And this whole thing about underdosing, I don't think more isn't necessarily better with electrolytes. Like I said, you're probably already getting a lot of that salt from your diet, and only very specific times when you need to be thinking, do I need an electrolyte? So yeah.
And if anyone listening doesn't know, the biggest thing with potassium is the function of your heart and making sure that there's not too much and there's not too little potassium. So yeah, it is quite a concerning one if there's too much. When I received this packaging, I tried to get in contact with the company, and I just was more out of interest to see if they had anyone with a scientific background who was like involved, or like what on earth their rationale was for putting 3 to 5 sachets on the packet. And really interestingly, they came back to me with, they sent me papers. All these papers said electrolytes are essential for everyday functioning. And I was like, don't try and mansplain my medical degree to me. I know electrolytes are essential for functioning, which is why they're in cucumber.
But not added ones being sold to me by this company.
And it did make me realise I actually don't think they had anyone scientific or medical on that team.
Yeah, because you don't need them. You probably don't need them. And, you know, the risks are outweighing the benefits quite substantially if you're taking them every day.
You've said that you don't think you'd be the same doctor you would without the running. How does movement help you manage with stress?
I think running has saved my life, not in a dramatic way, but it just, before a shift, if you just have that time for yourself, and I'm not saying you need to go and run 10K before your long day for your 12-hour shift, but just getting in something for yourself and doing that movement for yourself just sets you up. And I've even had it commented on. I think I once came in and I hadn't exercised, and then I came in the next day and my consultant was like, after I'd done my run in the morning, and he was like, "God, you just seem like a different person. You're so like switched on to, so much brighter." And I was like, wonder why. Nothing else has changed. I just did my run before the shift on that day. I think it's making the time for yourself. We know exercise helps with mental resilience. It helps with burnout, which is something that being a doctor is obviously you're at a high risk of. So much more. It's just, helps you manage your stress, makes you feel better, endorphins, mental health.
Yeah, everything. Is there anything that you used to believe about your body when it came to fitness or training that now you've completely changed your mind on?
I used to think you didn't need to strength train as a runner, but you really do.
Nice.
Yeah, you don't need to do loads. I think there's evidence that you just need to do 2 20-minute sessions a week. But that fits in with the NHS guidelines on how much you should be doing strength training wise anyway to be healthy. You do need to strength train because we want a body that can withstand the impact of running, and also a body that's going to, sustainably grow with you as you age. You know, we know that as you age, you lose muscle mass, and strength training can help slow down that rate of loss. And we know that a lot of issues women have with osteoporosis in sort of middle age and later life, you can kind of mitigate those kind of adverse effects if you have more muscle kind of acting on the bone to strengthen it. So yeah, guys, you need to weight lift.
Now, I'm sure there's a lot of ambitious young women who are very, very busy and strapped for time. And I feel like a lot of them will want to know, how on earth are you squeezing in your strength training, your running, a full-time demanding job, making sports science fun on the internet, and not like spontaneously combusting with stress?
I have a very supportive partner, but doesn't mean you can't do it if you're a single independent woman. Being super on it with your time. I think with the strength training aspect, I rely a lot on home workouts because it's just quick. You know, if you've done, so for example, if I had a long day, I will do the run before the long day, and then I'll come back and do 20 minutes with my weights at home, and then like that'll be fine. It's not perfect. I think letting go of this idea of perfect has really helped me, because I know in a perfect world I would be getting enough sleep, I would not be like, I'd have time to go to the gym and be like lifting heavy every weight session I have. But something is better than nothing in terms of preventing injury and keeping you running and getting your runs in. So if I can quickly meal prep like something that's not that healthy but is filling and fueling, if I can do my 20-minute like weight session quickly rather than like a 40-minute full body heavy weight session, that those are way better than just being like, I'm not going to do the strength, I haven't got time. So do you know what I mean?
Progress over perfection.
Always. That's the theme of this podcast. Just like get out and do it.
No, what, like 100%. And it's really interesting. You said that you just do your weights at home, because I really struggled with integrating weight training because my boyfriend's a big lift heavy man. And if I go to the gym with him, I would just maybe take like the little weights. If every time I tried to introduce weight training into like my plan, I would just start off with something little, fun, high reps. And he would be there in my ear saying, Faye, that's not the way to build. You need progressive overload. You want low reps, high weight, da, 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 da. And I would say to him, look, the point isn't me doing it exactly how I should. The point is me just getting started and enjoying the process, or getting in what I can or what feels good. It might not be the most effective, but if I'm enjoying it, then
at least it's something.
Exactly. No, exactly. So as I said, I am a little bit obsessed with Dr. Mimi making sports science fun. I love it. But how did it, do you remember what you were doing when you posted that first video, or what made you post that first video and get over that hurdle of maybe caring what other people might say or think?
Climbing Cringe Mountain.
Climbing Cringe Mountain.
I think I've been thinking about it for so long, and I was like, if you don't just give it a go, like what's the worst that can happen? And I think it's also like, I actually literally big heading up myself, but like I had something valuable I thought I could offer on the platforms that wasn't really being done. Like there's a lot of running influence out there and they make great, amazing, like cool, funny content, but like there's not really anyone sort of making the content that's going to keep you running and like help you build a really sustainable and happy relationship with the sport. So I was like, let's give it a go. And it's also fun. I think our job can be you're acting on autopilot a lot of the time, and whether like kind of in life or when you're on the ward, it was nice to have something creative and do something creative, because there's not really much room for creativity when you're like looking at the nice skylines.
No, 100%. And I actually think you really epitomise why we need more doctors on social media. I think obviously medicine's quite a traditional career, and with that comes traditional views and traditional judgments. When you look at how much misinformation exists, especially in the fitness and wellness space, like you really epitomise that need for reliable, like expert voices in the wild, wild west that is social media, where like anything goes. What is next for Dr. Mimi?
So I am building on my passion, and I'm going to go back to uni to study a master's in sports medicine. And I think I have a longer term aim of potentially specialising fully in this field. So yeah, that is the aim. That's what's next.
And do you feel like there's any conversations in the women's like health and fitness spaces that maybe we haven't, that still needs to be addressed?
I think we're starting to talk more about inclusivity and platforming women, and trying to reduce the barriers that put women off. So safe spaces, running at night, feeling included in clubs. I think those conversations are starting to happen, but we still have a long way to go.
I'm sure a lot of people listening will have had that feeling where they know they should go out and exercise, but they can't find the motivation. Is there anything that gets you going when you're feeling a little bit demotivated?
I'm a hyper competitive person, like most doctors. So I have like regular races throughout the year. I think that keeps you accountable. I think if you're going for a time goal, obviously you don't want to get too obsessive over it, but that can help you motivate you, because it's like, oh, do you know what? I want to see what I can do. I want to prove that I can do that. And just putting on a good playlist, the classic. Yeah.
A good playlist. I feel like that's a really good one.
Yeah.
If you were, like, if Dr. Mimi was Prime Minister for the day, if you could make one change to sports for women more inclusive in this country, what would it be?
More, I don't know, just like more safe spaces to run. But that is really hard. And we need to be more dynamic and creative with policymakers on that. But like, I think there's so many, like every woman who runs will have a story of like being harassed or being followed or something really like not very nice happening to them on a run. So we need to tackle that. I think that obviously comes down to like education in schools about misogyny, and, you know, there's huge systemic issues, but there's also other things that we definitely could be doing to make our streets safer. Yeah, more female run clubs.
Yeah, more female run clubs. Do you have a situation that you've had when you've been out for a run by yourself that's been particularly scary?
Yes, I actually did. I was running at 5 a.m. because that's the time you have to get up to if you want to fit in a run before work. And I remember this man like coming up to me with like a ligature.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, coming towards me.
You're laughing, but that's not
no,
funny.
It's not funny at all.
That's terrifying.
It's really terrifying. And I remember just being like, what the hell? And just quickly like dodged him and ran off.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But if I was, I don't know, a slower runner,
yeah,
like that could have been a really awful like ending, or something could have happened. Now I'm thinking about it, that was actually,
that is so scary.
That's my trauma. That's my biggest mental and physical challenge. But yeah, no, how terrifying.
Did you go to the police afterwards?
I did. Well, I couldn't really remember what he looked like. It was so quick. I was like, I'm just gonna dodge and run off. I think he was very inebriated. I think it was someone like in between housing, but I was just like,
but not inebriated enough to like, and it's sober enough to
come
tie a
towards
ligature.
me with the ligature. Yeah.
Oh no, he didn't tie it. It was just like
he just had it out and was like coming for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my
If
God.
my mum and dad are listening, I'm sorry I didn't tell you this. Yeah, but yeah.
And then did that change how you ran afterwards in the morning or in the dark?
Yeah, I think it did. I think I was like, you need to start sticking to main roads. I think I was on a main road. That was the other not very nice thing. I think I was just like, that happened, hope it doesn't happen again. But if I was maybe newer in this journey of running, if I had, you know, if I'd had any trauma in the past, like that could have been something that ended my running like journey. That could have just been it, because that is terrifying.
Your running journey, your life.
My life.
I literally feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, because when I started training for the marathon, that was like my biggest. I wouldn't go out in the dark, like because also Sarah Everard was on a main road. I think and explaining that to my boyfriend, who just didn't really understand why I wouldn't just go out for a run in the dark. And every time I did a run in the morning when it was winter, I would always just do it on the treadmill for like my marathon training. Because maybe 5 years ago, when I was younger, when I was like 18, I did not have a care in the world. I would just I wouldn't care if I was by myself. But I don't know if since getting older, I'm so much more cautious about those disparities between like men's and women's like safety.
I try to not let it hold me back, but that is coming from a position of like, I'm lucky and I've not had any really horrible traumatic things happen with men. So that I think I can come at it from that perspective, but I think that's not very, I think that's probably quite rare. Those kind of things, that experience with the ligature, like that, like knowing that information, I think when you realise actually there is a lot of danger out there, or potential danger, it can be quite, I don't know, just not nice. And like ruining something that should be really, really nice and we should all be able to enjoy.
Yeah, and we come back to that statistic. Why are women not moving their bodies as much? I think probably it comes, a big part of that is probably like their safety. And you're right. You said we need to change like the way we view misogyny and how we speak to men. It's not just about telling women to change their roots and have your keys out in your hands. But like, I don't think many men are like aware that those are things that we have to consider
and think about before we put our trainers on. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then did you just go back home and say,
I kept on with the intervals.
Stop.
Tempo run.
You're like, that's bravery, man. I probably would have pooed my pants right there. That would be honestly when I pooed my pants.
I think I was just like, oh my God, like that really just happened. Like it wasn't, I don't think I really registered. I was like, oh, like that's really weird.
Yeah.
That just happened.
Yeah.
Thank God I couldn't run away.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I think the adrenaline was like really kicking in. But I was like, yeah, did that really happen? It did really happen. But I was like, just in a state of shock, I think.
And there would have been your fastest intervals back, I reckon. God, add that one to the training plan.
Yeah.
It's obviously a very sensitive subject, but it's also important not to, I guess, fearmonger.
Yeah, 100%. And then that is a freak event. And I've been running for 3 years, most of the time at 5 o'clock in the morning, and nothing has happened to me. So I think that's just, out of all the hundreds of runs I've ever done, that was just one event. And that's not going to happen to every woman. I think I was just unlucky. And you most likely will be fine.
We've got a question that we are asking all our guests. Dr. Mimi, what do you wish every woman knew by the time she was 25?
Love that. Make sure you're eating before your runs.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is